guys, what's going on? Is Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. How you doing, guys? At the time of this recording, if you're watching, in the next few days after it goes live, we just went from the winter theme to the regular non-winter theme here on the Bastion. And man, it feels lonely, it feels sad to me without the snow and the little Galek ice skating over here near the forge. Doesn't it feel very barren and empty? Anyway, guys, how y'all doing? Thank you for clicking on this video. Today, we're gonna go over 25 epic champions who are a great book investment. Listen, books. We mentioned this ad nauseum here on the channel. They're hard to come by. They're difficult to get in this game. Forget epic books. How about legendary books? Forget legendary and epic. Even rare books, honestly, on my free-to-play account, I am shocked at how difficult they are to get. I've been playing for a couple months on my free-to-play. I still don't have all of my rare go-to champions who I'm working on booked out because they're impossible to farm. I mean, quick 10-second rant, but what kind of feature, if it's necessary to upgrade champions in this game, to upgrade their skills using books, but no way to farm them inside the game aside from like advanced quests, what sense does that make? Why add something to the game? Well, we already know the answer. Anyway, guys, epic books, they're tough to get. How do you spend them? Like, what champions do you spend them on? Now, today is not just simply my top 25 epics retitled as best epic champions to put books in. You're gonna notice some really amazing, one of my favorite epics in the game, Royal Guard, for example, not gonna be on the list, not because he's not worth books. I mean, you can make this A3 a little bit better with books, but his main ability, Takedown, you can use this without books. I wouldn't prioritize putting books into Royal Guard because they're better served with other champions who I think it's more imperative that you put the books into. Another champion, because I know a lot of you guys, probably the #1 comment if I don't cover this at the beginning, that I am not including is Madame Ceres. Now, Madame Ceres, listen, I mean, insane champion, probably the best epic in the game, but you're already getting 100% chance of landing decreased attack and decreased defense. And once you kind of are towards the end of mid game, and every day it feels like they're releasing more decreased defense champions out there, we're seeing Madame Ceres more and more used kind of niche in the arena right now. Obviously a tremendous champion, but at the same time, in the arena, think about it, right? If I was only using Madame Ceres for the arena, she's probably the best arena champion out there inside the entire game right now. She's that good, but you only need to use this ability once. And usually the fight is over because you're using her on speed arena nuke teams, and you remove all the buffs, decrease attack, decrease defense, and 6 turns or 4 turns later, the fight is usually over 99% of the time. So again, guys, yeah, sure, invest books into Madame Ceres because she's that good, but I would prioritize some of these other champions. So again, guys, even if you disagree with me, at least I mentioned those 2 champions. We have 25 to get to here, so we're not going to go over their entire kits. We are just going to try to go speed round here and talk about why these champions are so good. So we're going to start with Archmage Helmet, who I should be doing a guide on in about 5 days or so, as soon as we can unlock him from Doom Tower. This guy is a beast. 108 base speed, solid base defense, a great support champion. He has an AoE stun chance. You can book this chance up an extra 25% and get it down to a 3-turn cooldown on time slip. This guy's gonna be such a huge champion for everybody who ends up unlocking him. Make sure you turn on the bell notifications because I'm gonna have a great guide on him the day or the day after he is available. I'm doing normal Doom Tower first so I can unlock him and do a guide for you guys. But check out this psychic guidance on his A3. This is a 5-turn cooldown, can be booked all the way down to 3 turns, increase speed, crit rate, and crit damage for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. Great champion to put your books in. This guy's going to be a stud. Next up is going to be one of my favorite champions still in the game, Stag Knight, man. He was a game changer when released inside, I think, was it late 2019 or early 2020? Either way, this guy's a beast. You really want to get this Huntmaster onto a 3-turn cooldown, and you want to get it up to a 95% chance of landing. That way you can grab that Sniper Tier 5 Mastery and get it all the way up to 100%. Stag Knight is a simple champion, but incredibly good, incredibly effective champion, high HP, high speed as well. What more do you want from a man? Stag Knight, what a beast. All right, so that's it for Banner Lords. Let's move right along here. High Elves. So, Tyrell I thought about not including as well because Tyrell's an interesting one, right? On his A3, you actually don't want for Clan Boss this cooldown to go down to 4 turns because he's going to be using it more often against Clan Boss. You really want him going in with the A1, getting more decreased attack and getting more decreased defense on his A2. However, his A2 needs to be booked up to 100% and his A1 needs to be booked up to 50% to get the maximum effectiveness, obviously, on Clan Boss to make sure those debuffs are always up on the Clan Boss. So all things being equal, I think you should invest books into Tyrell. Obviously, an incredible champion inside the game. And a third champion here that I want to give a shout out to, it's Vergis. Vergis is a beast now because of Scarab King. And not just because of Scarab King, he's one of the great support champions in the game, but people still sleep on Vergis because he received a huge buff about, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe a year ago. It's been a while, but people still are not on to how good he is now. You can get the reflect chance up on the A1. You can get the Aegis ability, which is insane, down to a 3-turn cooldown. And you can also get this passive down to a 1 turn. Every turn he's putting a shield on himself. He's placing a continuous heal on himself. I mean, this is an incredibly good investment in books. I mean, check it out. I mean, you do have 5 levels on the A1, okay, but all you need is 1 book for the cooldown on the A2 and 2 books for the cooldown on the passive. Very, very well worth your books, and they just don't make champions like this anymore, ladies and gentlemen, that you only need 3 books to get 3 cooldowns on 2 abilities, right? I mean, doesn't feel like they make them like that anymore, does it? All right, so that's it for High Elves. Let's go on to, I'm going to totally snub the entire Sacred Order. There's some good champions here, but, you know, look through them all for this video, and they just didn't make the cut. They're right outside the top 25 for me. Anyway, going to the Barbarians, guys. We do have a Barbarian or 2 here. Who is it, Ash? Did you write these things down? I did. Armina. So Armina, I did a champion guide on Armina. I'm a huge fan of this champion. Very low defense, so you have to, you know, keep that into consideration. Might have to build her with a little bit of extra stability around her, maybe a champion and a shield set on the same team. You can book up the chance for the stun on the A1, but the A2 is an AoE decreased defense, and you can book up to 100%. You can also steal turn meter on this ability. You really want it on a 3-turn cooldown. It's a great ability, Trampling Rampage, and she deals a significant amount of damage as well for a debuffer on your team. Think Tyrell Stag Knight type damage. Ear Splitter Bellow, excuse me, on a 3-turn cooldown, and you can get this chance of decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 20%. Has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn on enemies who have their turn meter fully depleted, and that can be booked up to 100%. So well worth your books into this champion. I do think that Armina is a tremendous champion who is just added to the game. Barbarians, that's all I have. Let's keep it moving here. Ogren Tribe. Well, dude, we have to mention Skull Crusher, man. Talk about a book investment. It's, you know, again, I'm only going to say it twice in this video, I promise. But they don't make them like Skull Crusher, do they, guys? Only 5 levels on the A1, on the A2, the no books on the passive. In the A2, just 1 book to get this cooldown, but this cooldown is so important to get from 4 to 3 turns, having that ally protect, and of course, most importantly, the counterattack for Clan Boss, man. You need this on a 3-turn cooldown. You need to put your books in Skull Crusher. It's a super no-brainer. Let's go 1 to the left in Ugo. Ugo, my favorite epic champion, certainly in the contention, in the running here, guys. She's another new champion on the list. And just like Armina, she has an AoE decreased defense, but she also has a block bust for 2 turns. Block bust for 2 turns, and that can be booked down to 3 turns. So having block buffs on your allies or excuse me, on the enemies, my bad, not block debuffs, block buffs. Having block buffs up 2 out of every 3 turns, plus the decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown, what a great ability, right? What a great ability. 3-turn cooldown, you can book it up to 100%. And then on the A3, you can get 2 turns off the cooldown on this to bring it all the way from a 6 to a 4-turn cooldown. It's removing heal reduction and another debuff from all allies, then a heal on all allies, and then kind of a niche revival ability as well. So granted, more books on this champion compared to like Skull Crusher, but at the end of the day, well worth it on Ugo. Tremendous champion. Am I going to say that about everybody? Probably, but Ugo is one of my faves they added this year. Man-Eater is a no-brainer, man. I mean, Ancient Blood getting it down to 5 turns is so important for unkillable teams, and to get any utility out of this champion who's, you know, a really special champion. On his A2 too, a lot of people don't talk much about Siphon. You think Man-Eater, you just think unkillable oftentimes, but Siphon's a great ability as well. Fully depletes target's turn meter and then fills this champion's turn meter to the amount the target loses. They could just say steal instead of making 3 sentences out of it or whatever, 2. But anyway, that can be down to a 3-turn cooldown, which is great as well on the Siphon. Do we have one more? No, we don't. Let's move over to the Skinwalkers. No Lizardmen, snubbing the Lizardmen here. But I'm a big fan still of Steel Skull. Believe it or not, Steel Skull is a big fella. And I was just gonna ask him, like, it's not a female, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, wait, forget it. For obvious reasons, it's not a female. Steel Skull, believe it or not, is one of the fastest epic champions inside the entire game. Doesn't seem like he is the most nimble on his toes, but he is. Looks can be deceiving. 111 speed. This guy's a great OG champion in the game. You can book this poison up, which is, you know, great to do for clan boss. On the A2, you want to get this cleanse down to a 3-turn cooldown because it's a great heal and full cleanse. And of course, you want to book this protection down to a 4-turn cooldown, increase defense on all allies, and then heals them. Obviously a great support champion, and it gets much better when booked. Steel Skull, definitely a great champion to invest in. Let's move over to the Orcs here, guys, and let's talk about another new champion who I don't have. Duck the Pierced, or is it Duke? I think it's Duck the Pierced. Anyway, this guy's pretty solid, man. Pretty cool look about him too. I haven't really taken a long look at him, like, aesthetically, because I don't have him yet, but pretty cool shield. He's got, like, his last victim just hanging out there. We'll take a look at his victim as we look at his kit. So he has a decreased accuracy that can be up to 40% on his A1, whatever, but Lunatic Outburst is a 3-turn cooldown. AoE, you can book it up to decrease attack, 100%, excuse me, decrease attack, and then also has a decreased defense on each critical hit. So you're landing decreased attack and decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown at 100% up, you know, pending a critical hit. So he's like Stag Knight right there, you know? Only difference being critical hits, which obviously can affect the land rates. But he also has a provoke on one enemy, also has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn on 2 enemies. And then he has reflect damage on this champion for 2 turns and an unkillable buff on the champion for 1 turn. And this can be booked all the way from 6 to 4 turns. This dude's really, really, really good, you know? He just is. Tremendous champion. I wish I had him. He's definitely going to be on my wish list. And once I do get him, I will certainly do a guide because Duck the Pierced, really, really solid addition to the game. Let's move it on over to Seer. Obviously, I mean, Karma Burn. Need I say more? It's an insane ability you really want on a 4-turn cooldown. It's the best dungeon nuke inside the entire game. You know, what would this video be without a shout out to Zargala? Zargala is one of the OG, probably one of the faces, I would say, of Raid Shadow Legends. And, you know, Devastate, you can get it to a 2-turn cooldown. And when it kills an enemy, it instantly activates the A3, which you should get on a 4-turn cooldown and get so it's fully booked to place a 75% chance, of decreased defense on all enemies for 2 turns. So you're getting a 2-time shot at that because after the first hit, she's hitting 3 times, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense. When you book it up, it's a consistent debuff, and with the A2, it's just, she's a great example of, again, another example like Armina of a DPS / debuffer all in one, definitely worthy of your books in the lovely Miss Zargala. Let's go ahead and move on to Demonspawn, guys. We're moving right along here. So Demonspawn, who do we have for you? Achak the Wenderin, man. Quite a few comments gave me grief when I pulled this dude on my free-to-play and I made the sneeze joke. Achak, bless you. I am a certified dad, so I'm allowed to do that, you know? On the A2, we have Cannibal Might, block debuffs on for 1 turn on all. What? Block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn, and the strengthen on all allies for 2 turns, and only 1 book required to get down to a 4-turn cooldown. Definitely book worthy there. Unfortunately, not the case in terms of only 1 book on the A3, but it is very important to get 2 cooldown turns off of Frostfire Gale, which is his main ability, right? It's an AoE attack with either freeze or HP burn, depending on if their attack or their defense is higher. It's a great ability, but again, 2 turns, that's what we're looking for in terms of worthy book investments on a great champion as well. So that is Achak the Wenderin. Do we have no more demons for you guys, even though there are quite a few honorable mentions in the Demonspawn? Let's talk about my man Gorgorab. Gorgorab's a solid champion, man. He just is. He's not the flashiest on paper, but he gets the job done when you put him on your team, right? And those of you who use Gorgorab, I'm sure you can attest to that. Fills a turn meter of all allies by 15%. Increase attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. Important to get this on a 3-turn cooldown because, let me tell you something, guys. Increase attack is probably the least sexy buff in the game. At least, you don't hear many people being like, ooh, increase attack. Wow, I'm going to invest in that champion. But there's a surprisingly lack of great or really decent increase attack champions in the game. Obviously, there are some well-known ones, Arbiter, etc., Gorgorab, Seeker, but there's not a ton, you know? So a champion like Gorgorab having the turn meter fill and the increased attack on a 3-turn cooldown is, again, it's not sexy, but it's important, it's good, and it's good to book it down. Only takes 1 book, right? And he has his revival that you can also book down by 1 turn. Also has the heal, so, you know, great to do that as well. So again, just a really solid champion who's even more solid when you book him out. Undead Horde number 2 is going to be, well, speaking of the devil here, we have a few Undead Hordes on the list. Seeker, I mean, Tailwind, get it from 5 to 3 with 2 books. Boom. That's what I'm talking about. Granted, 8 levels on the A1, but the Provoke is nice to have booked up as well, especially for the arena. Really, really solid champion. And, of course, for clan boss teams as well, really want that booked up on the A2. A tremendous turn meter boost at 30% there on Tailwind. Next up is going to be Husk. I did a guide on Husk about 6 months ago. This guy, you know, he's a solid champion. He's not hitting as hard as Royal Guard or Cold Tar or the other enemy max HP champions out there. I don't want to kid you on that one. But against bosses with like similar gear, this is tough to compare obviously, but pretending affinity is not a factor here. Let's say that Royal Guard's hitting for, you know, I don't know, let's say 500,000 damage on a boss. Husk is usually hitting for around half that, 250,000 or so with the same type of gear. It's a very anecdotal example, but about half the damage on his max HP ability. But what he has that the other max HPs don't have is this stun. Really great to book this stun up. It's a pretty consistent stun and on a 4-turn cooldown when you have it fully booked. So definitely Despair is an ability to worth looking into. And then Retaliate attacks 1 enemy, damage increasing according to this champion's current HP. But you can book it down to a 3-turn cooldown, and it does a decent amount of damage. Doesn't hit as hard as the A2. So wanted to give a shout out to my man Husk. Also want to give a shout out to one of the better epic champions in the game. It's Mausoleum Mage. So Mausoleum Mage, guys, I mean, Might of Undeath, increased crit rate, increased defense, and block debuffs. Of course you want this on a 3-turn cooldown. And again, 1 book necessary. I won't say it for a 3rd time, but you know what I'm thinking. On the A3, it's a great cleanse and a heal, and it's on a 4-turn cooldown when you book it up. Just kind of a no-brainer to book this champion. You can still use him unbooked, but why not have this insane buff kit and cleanse minus 2 turns when you book the A2 and the A3, right? This is a champion, again, you can definitely use him, but so much better when you have him booked. Vogoth is a champion, another new champion, so many new champions because they're releasing a lot of really good epic champions lately, you know? Wave of Revulsion, you can book this down to 3 turns, and you can book this Provoke up to, what, a 75% chance. Really, really solid. Also has a 75% chance when booked of placing a decreased attack on targets who do receive that Provoke debuff based on HP, but it's a great CC ability. Why not book it down to 3 turns? He also has on this passive, really important to get this booked up. It's only 3 levels, but you can bring it from a 70% chance, excuse me, to a 100% chance of when attacked by an enemy under his Provoke debuffs that he places when booked on a 3-turn cooldown. He'll be increasing the cooldown of a random skill by 2 turns, and it occurs once per attack, and there's no cooldown on that, so it happens every time. Definitely a champion that's worth looking into for a progression support champion. Next up, we're going to go ahead and take a trip over to Dark Elves. A lot of Dark Elf candidates here, but guys, I'm a big fan of Lua. Lua on Hail of Arrows, you can get it from a 4 to a 3. It's a great AoE attack. She's a tremendous for spiders, but she's tremendous really, you know, in a lot of different areas in the game because of Lucky Shot, her A3. And you really want to book this down to 4 turns. Attacks one enemy, decrease turn meter by 100%, and will ignore shield and block damage buffs. Now, it's not hitting nearly as hard as Heartseeker, Cold Heart's ability that also decreases turn meter by 100%, but still, it's a great ability to have on her kit, and you really want this on a 4-turn cooldown. That's all I have to say about that, but Sylar is insane. Also, my number 2 crush in the game. Sylar, an AoE attack on the A1. Sylar is a beast of a champion, guys. I mean, even the damage here, booking this up, it's not great investment of epic books, don't get me wrong, but she deals a decent amount of damage, but she brings just so much to the kit. She has an AoE on the A1, an AoE on the A2, and Leaden Legs you can book down to a 4-turn cooldown from a 6-turn, with a decreased speed for 2 turns and decreased turn meter of all enemies by 40%. A great kind of control champion, plus adding some damage to the equation on top of that. Sylar is a beast of a champion. An AoE attack on the A2, like I said, you can book this down to 3 turns and then book it up to a 100% chance of landing the decreased accuracy for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Sylar, very, very, very good. Let's go on to Knight Revenant, guys. We have, you know, how can you not book Miscreated Monster, dude? He has a 3-turn stun and an amazing OP shield on his A2 when booked. On the A3, it's just 2 books to get this ally protect down from a 6 to a 4-turn cooldown. Makes him one of the best support champions inside the game. And man, you know, like I could sit here and talk about Miscreated Monster for hours, but he's definitely, if there was any champion who's epic worth your books, Miscreated Monster is certainly going to be one of them. What a beast. Next up is going to be Sepulchral Sentinel. Say that 5 times fast. Go. I'm sure half of you are like, it's not that hard, Ash. Stop it, man. Sepulchral Sentinel. Getting this A2 from a 5 to a 4 is imperative. Obviously, increased defense and block debuffs for 2 turns. And then, you know, just as importantly, booking this from a 25 to a 50% chance of completely blocking incoming damage when an ally is attacked. Occurs once per turn is just so important to do on this champion. Definitely worth your books on Sepulchral Sentinel. Great clan boss, kind of specialist champion, and also has that aura defense in all battles that you're looking for clan boss. Moving right along here, let's take a trip over to the dwarves, guys. We're wrapping this video up. Going pretty fast for yours truly. Grizzled Jarl. Man, what a beast. Easy champion to book. I mean, well, no, I take it back. Easy A2 to book, and so important to book this ability. It's only 2 books, gets it from a 5 to a 3-turn cooldown, which is such a difference maker in this amazing support champion. Block debuffs and increased defense. You can bring that all the way again from a 5 to a 3. And then an AoE attack with decreased attack, you can bring this from a 5 to a 4, and you can also get it up to a 100% chance of landing that decreased attack debuff. So a great buffer and debuffer on the same team. He also decreased each target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted. I didn't even realize that he had that on his kit, to be honest with you guys. So adds even more utility out of him. Rearguard Sergeant, I mean, I'll keep it simple on her. 50% chance of a decreased defense. Great for clan boss. Great for faction wars on the A1. Definitely nice to book that up. But more importantly, an AoE decreased attack and getting this to a 3-turn cooldown is going to be important. And 2 extra cooldowns on the Fend Them Off, which is an ally protect and a heal on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. You can get this from a 5 to a 3. Fantastic champion to invest your books in for obvious reasons. And then last on the entire list, ending with another new champion, is Melga Steel Girdle. Melga Steel Girdle has she's a new champion, so she requires 9 levels just on her A1. Has a 50% chance of removing 1 debuff from a random ally. You can book it up to 75% chance if you want to invest 150 books into it. But Sheer Grit is a great ability, and it's great to get this on a 3-turn cooldown if you can afford all these books. Places shield buff on all allies that heal 20% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. Also places continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. Great ability when it's on a 3-turn cooldown. And then you can get 2 levels off of her revival, which is a 2 random ally revival with a shield on them from 7 to 5 turns on the cooldown. Again, a solid reviver for Dwarf. She's going to help a lot of you guys out in faction wars especially, but also with that shield, she's a viable support champion for Doom Tower as well. Guys, that's my list. Who is my biggest snub? Who did I leave off? And who's on the list that probably shouldn't have been? Let me know in the comments below, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.